Brad, thanks very much. BradLee. BradLee's a surfing coach from Queensland, from the Sunshine Coast, from Coolum Beach, or that area. That's the same area that Julian Wilson hails from. Brad's been the Queensland state coach a number of times. He also has worked, and in that capacity and in his private business, he's worked with tons of past Australian professional surfers, current and past, and also he runs a successful surf coaching business called Sunshine Coast Elite Surf Coaching, again based out of Coolum Beach in Queensland. Brad, thanks for agreeing to come and talk to myself and my subscribers. Can you tell us about yourself and your world with surf coaching?
Yeah, sure. Good to be here, Martin. Look, initially I've been surfing for over 50 years, coaching for over 30 years or thereon now. I started my surfing down the south coast of New South Wales and moved up to Queensland over 30 years ago. Live here in the Coolum Beach area. During that time, I got heavily involved in school surfing as a school teacher, and I coached Queensland school teams, Sunshine Coast school teams, even Australian school teams. I've had the pleasure of coaching surfers in a team environment, like Julian Wilson, as we mentioned, and Joel Parkinson, Mick Fanning, Dave Rastovich. Also, I've had the honour of coaching quite a few Australian champions and working for Surfing Queensland as their head coach in the junior surfing capacity, as well as being a talent identification coach for the Sunshine Coast. During that time, I've had multiple surfers that I've coached who've had success either as professionals or highly ranked amateur surfers, and I continue to do that to this day.
Yeah, okay. So when these surfers come to you, they just don't become champions. They actually come to you and they work through a process. And obviously, a number of those surfers, they came to you as young, maybe 12, 13, 14-year-old kids. And so where do you start when you get a surfer like that who can already surf, but they're wanting your instruction? Where do you start when you work with those type of surfers?
Yeah. Look, people come to me for all sorts of reasons, Martin. I even have just your average surfer who comes to me who's, 35 years of age and been surfing for 10 years or 40 years of age and asks to help them out. And the process isn't that much different. The first thing is I try and make sure that I can relate to that person and build a relationship with them to make sure that they have some faith in me and they know my role as a coach. And I think once they have that faith and belief and you give them instruction and you put them on the right track and it works, then all of a sudden they develop this trust with you. But initially I have to identify with them what they want from me. Is it a surfer coming to me who's a 35-year-old who's got a lot of weaknesses in their technique, or is it someone, as you said, a young person, 10, 11 years of age who want to become a professional surfer? So I start with looking at a lot of video footage of them. So I do a lot of video work, and I basically look at a few things. I look at mainly their basic technique. So I look at their body mechanics and I try and work out what it is they're doing correctly and incorrectly. And often it's very obvious. Sometimes when you've got a surfer who's quite a talented surfer, you have to really tweak and find out what's wrong. I do use video a lot in my analysis. I spend a lot of time giving feedback on the beach immediately after, as well as they talking to me. So, I'll try and find their weaknesses. It could be their positioning on a wave. It could be their wave selection. It could be their decision-making, or it could be their technique, and I try and work on that.
Yeah, so what are your non-negotiable skills that you think every surfer should have? What do you think are the things that people really must have in their surfing to have competency or even to be successful as a competitive surfer?
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that a lot of, especially kids that come to me, they want to run before they can learn to crawl or walk, or they want to learn to fly before they're more relevant, before they know how to surf. You know what I mean? And I don't want to kill that creative, that innovative drive and need, because you need that. But before you do that, you've got to have some things going on. You've got to be able to make sure that you can do a quality, for example, bottom turn. Just about every maneuver we do leads from a good quality bottom turn. You've got to make sure that when you're going to make your re-entry, your front foot's above the lip, for example, and you've got the right technique. You've got to make sure that you've got your correct body height. You've got to make sure that you rotate, and you make sure you look where you're going. And when you go to land a maneuver, you've got to make sure you know that your body position has to be correct to land. So I guess to summarize, unless you can do a quality bottom turn, unless you can do a decent re-entry, backhand and forehand, unless you can do a roundhouse cutback, there's no point in going any further and trying to, do something that you're not ready for. So there's some non-negotiables with me, and they are basic maneuvers, making sure mechanically they're sound and your technique is correct.
The Sunshine Coast where you come from is famous for its quality waves, but it's also famous for having a lot of small waves.
Sure.
So the thing about Sunshine Coast surfers is they generally can surf fast in small waves. Is that a consequence of the advice they get around them, or is that a consequence of just their conditioning and the surf conditions they regularly face?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I did a lot of surfing when I was younger down the south coast of New South Wales, and even when I first moved here to the Sunshine Coast, I'm going, wow, what am I faced with here? There's no much power in the waves, even when it gets a decent size. And I think what happens, and I've always said that they I guess they punch above their weight in performance-wise when you look at kids that have come out of the Sunshine Coast, especially when we look back, 10, 15 years ago, your Wade Goodalls, your Mitch Colborns, those sort of guys, they're great examples, where basically they have to learn how to generate speed and power themselves. The wave won't do it for you. It's a lot different, you go and take off in Fiji and you go to surf frigates or, restaurants or anywhere, and the power's there. You don't have to generate that power. So I think it's a consequence of living on the coast that you learn to surf and generate speed and power throughout your surfing because of your environment. And I think it's helped a lot of surfers out. And we've seen a lot of quite good surfers come from an area that's not renowned for its, waves of power and consequence. So I guess it's a bit like Kelly Slater's story.
Well, without a doubt, Florida is probably similar to the Sunshine Coast in the fact that a lot of small waves, and Florida, Kelly Slater, and Frida Zamba, and Carolyn Marks now in current. These are great people who come out of the small wave environment. I've always thought that it's a case that the thing about coming from a small wave environment is that those surfers, when they get to quality waves on a regular basis, they tend to surf their brains out. They got more enthusiasm, they got more focus in those waves because they're enjoying the jewels that other people have every day, So I think that's part of the mindset of those people as well.
Yeah, the froth factor is there because, and when they travel, they like to travel and they like to find waves that are of quality so that, and they'll surf their brains out, as you said. And that's a great thing.
It's interesting, a big part of speed creation is straightening your body and lifting your arms forward, or that's what I teach. And, it's really, really important for small wave surfing. But I did a presentation a couple of months ago on my website on small wave surfing, but it also showed a clip of Kelly Slater in 10-foot pipeline getting a 10-point ride where he pumped 3 or 4 times in the barrel, which is the same technique as what you need to do in small waves as well. So, like learning how to surf well in small waves has a direct transfer to surfing well in big waves as well.
Yeah. We could.
Sometimes you need to marry the power from the wave with the power of your body to get the best result.
We do a lot of practicing. There's a lot of time, especially this time of year on towards Christmas, where there's not much swell at all. And I always go through those things. And I think I learnt those from you, Martin, those techniques, that Mick Fanning arm raise and the arm pump and getting onto your toes, and, your non-look turns are out. You've got to make sure you're looking where you're going, and the raising of your arms to make sure and overemphasize the use of your arms in those small conditions to gain that speed. And I've done a couple of video presentations myself on exactly that, small wave surfing. I think I used, I'm trying to think who my model was, but Jay Phillips, actually, who, I actually used Jay for that one, but yeah.
Right. And so, okay, so there's some positive things you can do in sport. What about mistakes? What mistakes do you regularly see with surfers? What are the sort of things that need to be sorted?
I think there are some general ones that we see all the time, and that's a lack of, I guess, not moving weight or transferring weight. And, you'll see it all the time. You'll see these people that are way on their back foot, and they're wondering why they're not rotating through their, say, forehand re-entry. And the reason is all their weight's still on their back foot. They haven't shifted their weight to their front foot. And it could be cause of a few reasons. One of them could be they're too tall at the top of the wave. The other one is that they may be not looking where they want to go. And so they're not, rotating that upper body. And it's difficult. And I try and, demonstrate this to kids on the beach. The rotation of the shoulders will transfer to the rotation of the hips if you're low. But if you're tall, it takes a long time for that to happen. That's basic physics, and it's basic, human movement. And when when I coach, I like to give kids reasons why they need to, say, get low through the turns, why they like to look, why they need to reach. Why they've got to lean onto that wave face on bottom turns. They might have their arm dragging behind, not in front, towards the front of the wave. Yeah. So there are lots of things that we see, but yeah, a lot of times it's that weight transfer, and it's the head and hip and trunk fail to move there. So there's lots of things there, and then we can even go to wave selection. And we can even look at, point of takeoff on a wave. One thing I didn't mention with non-negotiable too is a good pop up to your feet, because that's another one that you often see with common mistakes, is dragging that back leg up. And, a lot of, I guess a lot of learn to surf operators can be a little bit guilty on that, because they want to get, it's a different reason they're coaching kids. They just want they want those people to be up and riding and having fun. We go a bit beyond that, and we're trying to find out, get our kids to jump up, or people to jump up really quickly. It's so important to get that initial takeoff nice and quick.
It's interesting you talk about helping people have clarity about what they do in a wave. And, Michael Martin, the sports psychologist I spoke to yesterday, he talked a lot about having clarity in the mind of all surfers, but particularly elite surfers, and so it's all about, helping people understand the sport so they can take possession of the instruction and take possession of the improvement in their performance, because they understand why. Then they're more likely to focus and stay focused on that task.
And I think that's something, I talk to, things like it's, you're like a spring when you're doing a bottom turn, the potential energy and then the release against the face of the wave. It's amazing. I mean, you have to, I guess, alter your style of teaching depending on the age of the person you're coaching. But certainly when I'm coaching adults or young teenagers, they can understand those physics and physical principles. And I really like to do that. And obviously the best tool we've got is the video camera and the immediate feedback and having a look. And they go, wow, I thought I was super low in that turn. I didn't realize, I thought I was throwing my arms right up. No, you weren't. And there it is. There's the evidence. And guess what? Unless you do that, this won't happen. And that's what they need to see.
Yeah, and with that comes the teaching cues of exaggeration and doing it more than you think you should, and
Yeah.
often when they exaggerate something, you say, "Oh, go and exaggerate it, get lower, exaggerate the bend, or exaggerate the lift of the arms," and when they do, actually, it gets to about perfect what they need to do. So
I say that to them every time. I said, look, don't worry. I said, because I'll pull you back if you're going overboard with it. But it never happens. It never happens. And,
uh,
I mean, I've got a girl I coach now, and she's an Australian champion. She's actually right now competing in the under-18s round 2 of the Queensland title. She won the first round.
yeah,
I said, I'll catch her up tomorrow. I've got a meeting today. But anyway, she came to me as a dancer, and very, very large, overemphasized arm movements. Unfortunately, those arm movements weren't mechanically sound a lot of cases. But when I dragged her back to being and understanding the principles of movement, she's very good, and she's a great listener. And Aaliyah Smith, her name is. She's a great server, great girl, and I think she's got a bit of a future. So I hope she goes all right.
yeah, right.
Today.
Well, that's right. Well, hopefully the motivation of the athlete is consummate with the information they get, and I've
Yeah.
clearly you've worked with enough talented people to know that works really well. Well, and what about your philosophy? What's your philosophy with a server? Like mine is, I want to help people get to their potential, whatever that potential may be. That's if you like,
Yeah.
that's the underlying philosophy of my coaching every day. So
Yeah. Well, I just want, it's like anything. I guess if you think about any sport or any activity you do, even darts, or chess or snowboarding, the better you become at that activity or that, pastime, the more you enjoy it. That's my belief. That's the way my belief is. And so my thing is to make them the best they possibly can be. So it's very similar to yours. And the other thing is, when we're talking about good surfers and who is the best surfer, well, maybe it's the person that's the happiest in the water, Martin. He's the one that's got the biggest smile on their dial every time, and you will get that, and you'll reach that happiness and feel as if you're good doing what you're doing as you improve your performance. And that's what I believe. So that's, what I try and do. And that's what I'm hoping that I've achieved over the years with many surfers. And, sometimes they leave your coaching because they're moving on, or they probably decide they're not going to become a professional surfer, but they're happy with where they got to. But hopefully you've done the right thing and you've helped them along the way. And that's what you've got to, you've got to feel happy about what you do as well.
Yeah, I've always thought that the better you surf, the more you enjoy it. But some people are more cruisy than that, and they believe the best surf in the water is the one that's having the most fun. But a lot of people we work with, fun for them is actually excelling. And that's the fun that they enjoy working on their surfing. It's not for everyone, but they do enjoy working on surfing, and they really, really enjoy putting in good performances, sorry.
There's attributes, you've got to have to be a successful surfer. One of them is you have just got to be dead keen. One of the things too about surfers being, they need to be frothing with everything they do. They need to want to go out and they want to surf. They want to get up in the morning and train at 6 a.m. on the beach with me. They're the ones that succeed and continue to succeed. You see so many of them get washed out or burnt out. But I think that froth factor is something we can't underlook. And those surfers that want to get better because they want to achieve, and as you said, they're the ones that may be professional surfers in the long run. And that's what they know, their performance has to be up to scratch, and what they do, their decision making has to be right, for example. So good surfers, good surfers because you see them in the water. They're the ones catching all the waves. They're the ones making sure that every time there's a good wave, they're on it. That's part of their DNA.
Without doubt, all the surfers I've worked with who have gone on to successful career, right from an early age, they surf every day as though they're in a competitive heat. It's
Yeah.
not a contrived thing. It's not something that they're trying
No.
to big note themselves. That's just who they are. It's their DNA, as you said. And then and then when they get to a competitive environment, that's just what they do. They don't have to put it on. They don't have to change anything. They just have to figure out on the day what they have to do, and then they go and perform. And I think that's my mantra as well, is that what you do every day is what comes out in your performance.
Yeah.
So that's the little things that you do every day are very, very important if you're going to be a competitive surfer.
Yeah, you can be nice as you like on land, but when you get in the water, they just turn into a different beast, you know. I
Well,
remember a young guy.
you can do that ethically as well. I think some people don't
Yeah,
do it
sure.
ethically, but
Yeah, mate.
I think if you go out there and you take your time and you take your waves but when you get a wave, you actually do the job. You perform well. Well, and I think you're on a good path in that sense.
Yeah, I think that, it also helps to have an amount of athleticism. If you don't have
Sure.
athleticism, it's difficult. And I look at, most of or a lot of the CT present and past surfers have all been good at other sports.
Yeah.
If I look at someone like Isabella Nichols, she was a great soccer player. She was a really good runner. Yes. And, Sally Fitz, the same thing. You take someone like there's a girl I'm coaching now, Leah, I mentioned earlier. She's a very, very good sports person outside of surfing. So I think that does help as well.
Oh, well, just from all the athletes I've worked with, that's the same thing. And my son, who did very well in the world of surfing, he could have been a champion in half a dozen sports.
Yeah.
That's just that's who they are. That's the makeup of those very elite athletes.
Yeah.
And of those talented surfers that you've coached and been associated, who stands out in your mind? And have you got any reasons for your opinion in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I'm presently working with Noah Stocker, who was the junior under-18 champion a couple of years ago. Leah Smith, who's won state titles, done very well as a junior athlete so far in surfing, and represented Australia in the Worlds last year. I have to go back to Isabella Nichols because even though I've worked with lots of athletes, she's the one that I personally trained as a young surfer from the time she was 12, probably to the time she was about 17, 18. And she's won numerous regional coast, Sunshine Coast titles, obviously. She's won Australian amateur titles. She's won the world professional junior title. And now she's just finished in 2019. She finished top of the QS qualification rounds, and she's entered the CT. She is actually a very, very talented athlete. She was a talented surfer who you could explain something to, and she would take it on board, go practice it, come back. What's next? So she was a very motivated surfer. She had that froth factor. She's also a very intelligent person. She's presently studying engineering at Deakin University part-time. And she's doing that for a number of reasons, I think. And one of them is not only to give herself something to do when she finishes surfing, so there's a career there, but also to extend her other avenues besides surfing. So she's keeping herself real. I see a lot of athletes, and they become homeschooled or something, and they've got all this time in the world to go surfing. You know what? They don't surf any more than the kids that are going to school. In fact, the kids that go to school all the time. They're the kids that get up before school and after school, and they continue surfing. These, they've got all day to go surfing. They have a look at it. Oh, it's not good enough now. I'll go when the tide's a bit different. It is quite interesting. And Isabella just had that drive. She got lost a little bit once she won the QS. I think she thought perhaps it would be a little bit easier than it was. And once she learnt that it was a necessary evil, that you're going to have to work very hard. You're going to get your fitness. Her fitness levels are pretty amazing, and her practice routine is pretty good. So she continues to train all the time, And I think whenever we get this CT kicked off again, hopefully next year, she'll be very successful.
Yeah, it's interesting. All the athletes that who have made WCT over the years that I've worked with, there's none of them are dummies. They're all very smart people, and Rebecca Woods, for instance, and Jessie Miley Dyer, who used to come and train all the time, and Jessie's now the commissioner at the WCT at the WSL. She both of them got their final year of school. They got 96 and 98 out of 100 in their end of year marks for the end of schooling. And these people aren't lacking of intelligence in any shape.
Taj was also up there, wasn't he? I think Taj was also.
Yeah, even they talk about some people who aren't outwardly intelligent. There's some famous people about that, but a lot of them, I think, are more artistic in their intelligence. Like Sean Cansdell, for instance. He, in my mind, was one of the best surfers I've ever seen, and people used to laugh about his antics and things he'd get wrong. But the thing about him, he was a great musician. He's he always drawing things, and the thing about him, so he had a different intelligence.
Type of intelligence,
different type, and so anyway, so that's one thing that they need at that level, that's for sure. And it seems to be a pattern or consistent ingredient to success for them.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other thoughts before we finish?
Look, I just think a lot of times I deal with parents as well, and parents certainly have a role to play in their child's progress in the sport of surfing. I think they can be supportive financially and emotionally, and if they do that with a positive way and help promote their young child in a positive way, help build up their promo, their profile with photos, help video. They can do lots of positive things, but they can also, if they're not careful, be very negative. And they've got to be very careful that they don't do that, because I've seen it happen many, many occasions that they become this negative force or influence on the kids, and the kid ends up just spitting the dummy and forgetting about it. I don't want to do this anymore. I think the lesson is you can't live your life through your own child. You can't do that. That's their separate identity. You've got to allow them to be who they are, and you've got to be happy with their decisions they make in the end. You guide them by all means, but yeah. And I guess the way we're looking at surfing at the moment, I think it's given a lot of people a lot of opportunities to rethink of what they're doing with the sport. I've even got, athletes that I work with at the moment questioning, can they be successful in this sport at the moment as professional surfers? Unfortunately, there's been a lot of companies, big surfing businesses, being taken over by corporate companies, and the dollars that were there once upon a time towards running events and helping surfers out isn't quite there. I think you've just got to look at other avenues and other sponsorship deals that you can get, and still remain positive and think that through these times we're gonna come out the other side, and maybe we'll all be better people for it. And I'm hoping that's what happens with myself.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, thanks for those points, Brad. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure my subscribers will enjoy the discussion.
No problem. Thanks.